It's Monday. Internet. Monday. Stirring my coffee. It's really full. Internet. Whoa. It's really full. Let's wipe this off. What up? I gotta push some buttons over here. What up, Internet? What's going on? Why is the chat not woke? Gotta click a button. There we go. What up, Internet? Let's see here. Who is first one to the chat? Frank Dominguez. What up, Frank Dominguez? Happy Monday. First one to the chat. You won something. I'm not sure what you won. But it is Monday, and we're here, and we are live. It is Monday, the 9th of October. Hope everyone out there is having a lovely Monday. Give a shout out to all the people in the chat here real quick. Big Pedro's here. Jordan Leroy, what's up? Mary Beth Mabe. Nisi was not the first. I think you were the fourth. Fifth. Fifth. Oh, you was a fifth. Kieran Egan is here. Steven Scogland. Hey, FU2. AMA Aquatics. South Carolina Cichlids. Candy Overhauls. The Lone Aquarist. The Lone Aquarist, all alone. Donnie Hill. Wyatt Ward. And Ben WR. Frank Dominguez is asking a question, which I'm going to get to in just a minute here. Maggie 72712. 72712, Maggie. What's up? How you doing? Happy Monday to everybody out there. I hope it's going glorious. We are going to run over a bunch of the weekend stuff. This weekend was wild. We had a fantastic time. You're not going to get any video from this weekend yet. Yet, mind you, it is a yet. It is not a no. It is a yet. So that'll be coming out at some point in time this week. I don't know when that's going to be dropping. We're going to be dropping some weekend videos on you guys. Hopefully you enjoyed the video over the weekend. I managed to get one produced. I don't know. It seems like some people liked it. Hopefully, yeah. What the? Does this thing not move now? Oh. I don't think that thing moves. I tried to move it. Hold on. Well, I guess we'll just tilt it and do that. Okay. So hopefully y'all liked the video over the weekend. If you didn't see it, we got a new light for the 150. Courtesy of our friends at the Aquarium Co-op up in Edmonds. If you are not familiar with the Aquarium Co-op, you should get familiar. They have lights and stuff. They have lights, quality lights and quality products. This live stream was not brought to you by any sponsors, other than you guys. That is kind of the name of the game, but I just wanted to say where I got it from. I got it from the Aquarium Co-op. And so that was the video over the weekend, and there are so many comments on that video so far that I haven't gotten to responding to them. But those of you, everybody out there will get a response at some point in time when I get to it. So honestly, it's just a matter of sitting down and typing out a whole bunch of stuff. Though one of the things that I noticed from a lot of the people, I think there's 50 comments on that video, yeah, so far. Yep. So far, most of the commentary in regards to that video is that everyone that has that light actually likes it. And something I put in that video was I'm not sure if it was water resistant or actually waterproof like it said, and I've actually got a few reviews from some people that it actually is waterproof. They've been dropping them in their tanks on accident, I think, not on purpose. I think some certain fellows out there put them in on purpose, but just to make sure, just to to recap on that a little bit, it actually is waterproof from what I hear. So some people have put them in there on accident. Some people have put them in there on purpose. To each his own. Maybe at some point in time I'll dunk it in there and see if it see if it blows up or not. But hopefully it would be on purpose and not on accident. A lot of the weekend stuff we had going this weekend. The first things first. People were asking about Blade Runner, how the Blade Runner movie was. There's no spoiler alert here. I'm not gonna tell you what happens in the movie, but I will tell you that film is very much worthwhile going to see in the theater. It was fantastic. It definitely met my expectations. It either met them or exceeded them to some degree. It was a fantastically shot movie. Even if you don't like the storyline, you will like the cinematography and the editing in that film. Not to mention the nostalgia of it. The soundtrack was insane. The team, I was going to say whoever it was, the team that did the sound on it did an amazing job. I will be 100% honest. It kind of blew me out of the water again. I mean, the original soundtrack from the original Blade Runner was mammoth, and living up to that expectation is probably was probably extremely I don't know. They were probably operating under a lot of pressure in order to get that. I guess just to meet the level, I guess. I don't really know what I'm saying here. What was I trying to say? I don't know. But but every aspect of it was pretty great. The acting in it was great. The storyline, it definitely keeps you going, like, the whole time, going like, okay, wait a minute, wait, hold on a second. Okay, wait, whoa, something else is happening. Definitely keeps you engaged. It is a long movie, so get ready to drain your bladder ahead of time, and make sure to have extra snacks. Bring some food with you, some sandwiches, spaghetti. I highly recommend just being a weirdo that eats spaghetti in the movie theater. It's not, that comes. It's underrated. It's underrated being somebody who's eating pasta in the movie theater. It's a little bit crazy. Let's see. AMA Aquatics says he's always here. My tab is always open on your screen. Oh, right on. I appreciate that. That's pretty cool. Tiny violin for the lone aquarist. Yeah, we're a fan of the lone aquarist. Anthony Pitty, what's up? How you doing, internets? Kathy Robido, how you doing? Nisi says, do you know only the awesomest fish keepers hit the like button? So apparently we're supposed to hit the like button. I'm not 100% sure what the like button does, other than apparently it's supposed to promote activity within the algorithm, but not even the people who operate the algorithm are really sure what it does at this point. So I guess hit the like button, right? Nisi is saying we're so close to the ad-free version of the show. If you head over to the Patreon, which she just posted into the chat, head over to the Patreon. This is basically a fan-funded affair here, is realistically what we're trying to prove and promote and kind of do here to launch this project. As you guys can see, this is episode 582. I certainly have put in a lot of time and energy into trying to produce stuff to help people out, and also hopefully entertain sometimes. Sometimes I can miss that mark. Let's be honest, sometimes in the past I've just kind of been a douche, but hopefully we can continue. Hopefully we can continue to do entertaining stuff like this last weekend and this live stream and stuff like that. We do have more live streams coming up. I was talking to Nisi about ahead of time here, there will be a 10 a.m. live stream tomorrow. I'm not 100% sure which one we'll be on. which channel that will be on, but that will be with Corey from Aquarium Co-op. We're working on the podcast. That's part of the podcast that we'll be working on tomorrow. We'll be doing that live stream, plus recording some other stuff that will come out only on the podcast. So wherever the link is for that, I probably should have it, and people have gotten on me on that a little bit, that I should just have a window open with all the tabs here. And you're right, I really should have the tabs if I'm going to talk about stuff. But honestly, I don't. I assume that some of the moderators will have that. They'll pop it up into the chat at some point in time. But like I said, the Patreon page is where we're funding this whole thing, and where that is where this is coming from. It's in order to keep doing this, and you know, I hate to beat a dead horse, but that's just realistically how it is around here. It's how I pay my bills. Oh, there's the Aquarium Co-op right there. Tomorrow we'll be on the Jimmy of Aquarium Co-op channel. If you are not subscribed to the Jimmy of Aquarium, I just kicked something down here. If you're not subscribed to that, click over on the link. And Nisi just posted the podcast right there, so check that out if you get an opportunity. All right, so back to this weekend. We had some lovely, lovely weather this weekend, and Victoria and myself were celebrating our 3rd year of whatever we're doing here. As you guys, a lot of you guys know that watch the live stream and stuff like that, I refer to her as my future bride. We are 100% partners for sure, but we haven't done the wedding thing yet. And I say yet because that's the plan, but don't make me spoil it. Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert for Victoria. But that is the plan. The plan is we will be doing a wedding thing at some point in time. I'm not sure how or when that's going to work out. It's just a big giant mystery, ain't it? I'm sure if my mom's watching right now, she'd be super pissed. But either way, we were celebrating our 3rd year together this last weekend, and as I said, the weather was beautiful. We did get an opportunity to visit some family up in the north end. We happened to we stayed at the Silver Cloud that hangs out over the water up in Mukilteo, so it's over the Puget Sound. It's a great view, great spot. Hear the waves crashing underneath you while you're sleeping and stuff like that. Was pretty cool, and I will say, you know, kudos to the Silver Cloud Mukilteo for their breakfast. Their continental breakfast was delightful, I have to admit. They had fresh fruit out there. There was waffles, sausages, scrambled eggs, quiche, a whole bunch of stuff. It was quite the spread. I have had a lot of continental breakfasts in my day, and I'm not going to say that one was number 1. It was not number 1, but it was definitely number 3 on the list, behind a couple of, essentially behind a couple of hotels in Hawaii. So that's a pretty high benchmark anyhow, to try and catch up with in Mukilteo. But as far as like a standard hotel goes, it was pretty darn good. They actually had somebody cooking for it, which was pretty cool to see, in what I would consider a pretty regular kind of hotel. But they had this nice seating area that was over the water and everything. That was pretty cool too. So you got quite the view in the morning. Check out the ocean, and there was a bunch of sea lions out there going crazy, and then some divers were going out there to go dive around and, I don't know, find, you know, ancient treasures or something. And that was kind of interesting. So then the night before that, we had a gift certificate to what was that? It's like the Ivers, like fancy Ivers. I don't know if anybody knows anything about Ivers out there, but Ivers is like a if you go to like the one in Seattle, they have like, you can get fish and chips if you just walk up to it, but then they have like a restaurant out the back of it that hangs over the water. Well, there's one in Mukilteo also that is pretty much fine-ish dining. It's actually just kind of a nice restaurant to go to and stuff like that. A lot of seafood and that kind of stuff. So we had a pretty big gift certificate there. So we pretty much just ate our we ate a lot of food. I'm gonna be honest with you. We ate a ton of food, and it was pretty enjoyable for sure. Then, as I said, we got to go watch the Seahawks, which that was kind of a crazy football game. If anybody watched that game, it was a little bit, so kind of a wild football game, honestly. But it was pretty fun, and they got the win, which is good. And then now we're on a bye week this week. So, you know, long story short, I know there's not a lot of sports fans out there. There's some football fans that watch this show, but long story short, kind of a crazy game, but but they won, so that's good, and we're moving on to the whenever the next game is. I'm sure it's some weird game on like a Thursday or something like that. But the best part was to get to see some of my family who's in town. One of my cousins has moved back from Kansas. And so we got to hang out with all those guys during the game and stuff. So that was fantastic to get to see the family and stuff. And then one of the main reasons we stayed up there yesterday was because we decided so we went to this fundraising for orphan dogs, basically. And I wish I knew the name of the charity. I don't know the name of it, but it's for you know, not stray dogs, but like orphan dogs, you know, ones to get them basically to get them a new family, you know, which is especially one of the reasons we got Mr. Chips here. He was, you know, he's like an elderly orphan, you know, and most people out there don't want to get the old lumpy dog, you know, they want to get a new little puppy dog. But Vicky and I, you know, we met Mr. Chips there, and we got Mr. Chips. But when we were at that fundraiser, one of the things that we bid on in the silent auction was it was like an aerial tour, right? Where you get in a small 4-seater plane and then go fly around Seattle and stuff. So that will be one of the videos that will be coming up at some point in time this week. I'll get a video of it uploaded. Now here's the cool part. So the guy that we flew with was actually a certified instructor, right? So he's actually somebody who teaches people how to fly. And when we went up to go fly around, here's what's insanely fun about it is that Victoria got to fly pretty much the whole time. I'm going to say she flew about 90%. She was even doing the landing and everything, which was really cool. I think Vicky was really excited about it. And I think she had a great experience, and I will tell you this, the sky was all sunsetty, you know, because we took off just before the sun was going down. Just before the sun was going down, and then as we were flying around, the sun was going down. So the whole time we were flying around, got all these really cool sunset shots. Of course, shot the Space Needle and, you know, all that nonsense, you know, just a regular old Seattle stuff that you see out there. But great shots of the Puget Sound and the Olympic Mountains with the sun setting behind it and all that. And quite a lot of fun, and was really cool because Vicky got to fly most of the time while she was or while we were on it, and I just got to sit in the back and like take pictures and shoot video of stuff and everything. So it was quite a bit of fun, and it was definitely a way to cap the what was already a fantastic weekend. That got thrown in on top of it. Like I said, we also went to Blade Runner, so we had a bunch of friends came down and went to Blade Runner with us. And the movie theater that we saw it at, you get assigned seating, right? So it's like stadium seating, so you're like, you know, seat, you know, G5 or whatever, and like that's your seat. So you get to get this really good you get to pick really good seats, like the seats that you want to sit in. You get an opportunity to get those, and then on top of it, it's like a recliner. It's like a super recliner that you just, and you can like lay down. You can like lay down completely flat if you want, or sit up straight, or I don't know, do a handstand or something weird. I don't know. Yeah, there's just plenty of space in there. I don't know where Mr. Chips is. Hey, Mr. Chips, where are you?
I don't know. The dogs are kind of mad at me right now because I caught them digging in the backyard, and that's a big no-no. They're digging, trying to find a mouse or something, and so they're a little bit irritated at me because I made them come back inside. Wushu Jimmy Brown went to his first local aquarium club auction this weekend. I didn't buy anything, but there were a lot of Corys for sale. Lasers, not lasers, etc. Oh, a lot of Corys. Right on. That's awesome. It's good. It's definitely good. That's definitely a piece of advice that I would give anybody out there, to find your local aquarium group. The easiest way to kind of go about doing that, I would say these days, is to get onto like Facebook and then find, you know, geographically the nearest group to you, and then possibly reach out to those guys like on Facebook is kind of the easiest way to do it now. I've tried to Google search them, and it's kind of a nightmare, honestly, to try and find some of that stuff. And just a really pretty much a mess. Let's see, how much was it? $38.50 per person. I believe that it, let's see, so we got 5 tickets and it was $78, I think. So, you know, if anybody knows how to maths out there, that's actually, I think that's less than it should be. What is that? 78, I don't know, divided. Yeah, so $16. It was like $16. Yeah, so it's actually not that bad. I think it's pretty much like a couple of dollars more than the standard ticket. Yeah, so it's like $15.80 or something like that. Yeah, it's some kind of weird number because they add tax in or whatever. They probably add like Barca Lounger tax or whatever. But yeah, when we go see a regular movie, I think it's like $13.50. So yeah, it's only like a couple bucks more for that theater. And the one thing I would say is that we did see it in 3D, so it definitely wasn't my favorite thing. I don't like to see movies in 3D personally, because as a lot of you guys know, that I am a huge fan of cinematography, and seeing things in 3D really kind of takes away from the cinematography in my opinion. It's sort of just an opinion-based reality that that I feel it takes away from the cinematographer, because it adds these other elements that don't necessarily apply to the real vision of what they're seeing. But it is a lot better now than it used to be, so it was still really enjoyable. The 3D glasses, they darken the images so much. And I will say there is a portion of the movie where they go from one area to another area geographically, and it definitely washed out the coloring change, right? So instead of being here, they're over here, and the color was supposed to be much brighter and much more saturated and stuff like that. But the 3D glasses are like wearing sunglasses, so they're pretty dark. And so I kept having to take my glasses off and on and off and on, and then to try and figure out like what is the saturation supposed to be like in this shot and that shot. Too much of a nerd, and the 3D takes me out. The 3D takes me away from the actual cinema experience, if that makes sense. Like I'm there to watch something and get my suspended disbelief going, right? That's like one of the big parts of being in a theater. I get my suspended disbelief going, and I get to watch this story that is happening. And so it realistically, it definitely takes away from the experience that I'm trying to be a part of, I guess. As Sashimi is saying, he wants his cinematography. Which is which is essentially, that is exactly how I would say it right there. But the 3D was the only downside to that whole experience. But I will say the movie is beautiful. The story is fantastic. The acting was great. The cinematography is fantastic. There's so many shots in that movie that are just mind-bending. And just really well done. I mean, you compare the 30-year gap, or however many years, 35 years or something, since the last one came out. In comparison to this one is just as good, plus the newer technology, if that makes sense. So it's like, I think they shot it in 8K or something. I don't know. It was just beautiful. So I would highly recommend it. On a scale of 1 to 10, I would give it a yes. On a scale of 1 to 10, I would definitely give it a yes to Rob Hicks. Go see it. That's definitely worth it. But as you guys know, it is fairly expensive to go to the movies these days. It did end up being here's the crazy thing, is that we went on a plane, we stayed at a hotel, we did all this stuff, and the movie portion might have been the most expensive part that we did, right? Realistically, just with this is only 3-hour affair, you know what I mean? Which is kind of crazy, but that's kind of the weird thing of all that. So let me try to catch up on the chat here a little bit. Keith, yes, Muggy here. Damage further south on the coast. What was that in regards to? Not sure. My fish club's next auction has Heinko Blair as a guest speaker. I'm not familiar with who that is. I'm gonna look up Heinko Blair. I'm never all that great at remembering who people are. That guy looks really familiar, like I've been to a speaking event. I don't know. I may or may not have seen that guy give a speaking event, so I feel like an idiot if I don't remember people I've seen speak. But as a lot of you guys know, I was pretty blessed with living really close to where the GSAS was, where the Greater Seattle Aquarium Society, who they bring in a ton of speakers. They bring in pretty much a speaker every single month. So I went to a lot of those, and I've seen a lot of the guest speakers and stuff like that. Let's see here. All right, so let's see. Yeah, me and 3D would be way too much to handle. The Fall Immortals Emerald City. Let's see. I always wait for the Red Box or Netflix experience. Unable to allow myself $13 to watch a movie and not have captions. Oh yeah, that is true. It's pretty difficult to go to a movie and not have the captions, especially if you're hard of hearing. That is pretty rough. I'm on a boat. I dislike 3D. Or I'm in that boat. I dislike 3D. Yeah, I honestly I would stay with the traditional cinema. That's just my own opinion, but either way. So it was a great weekend, and thank you everybody for watching the weekend video. I hope that was entertaining. I have to bring it up again, but thanks everybody for tuning in and checking that out. I definitely appreciate it, and hopefully you guys liked it. We'll see if I can't do more videos like that in the future. But speaking of videos, let's go on to the video segment and talk about CO2. Screwdriver. I've just got a screwdriver in my hand. I have problems. I have problems, you guys. We should go to the video segment. All right, video segment. What is that weird thing? What is that? All right, guys, as a lot of you know that have been following me around, that have been following the channel for a while, know that I built my own CO2 reactors. I find this to be the best way to supply CO2 to my water column in a very consistent, easy to manage way. Without a bunch of bubbles floating around, without a bunch of loss from gas off, as people often like to talk about. But this gives me a really consistent CO2 level within my aquarium. Not to get too sidetracked here, but I'm going to answer your guys' chat questions in just a minute here. This is probably the 14th different incarnation of reactor that I have built. This one is even more differenter. It's even more differenter than the ones that I've built recently. I decided to go with this T setup just because it's going to be a little bit easier to manage within the sump space. So I'm actually going to be turning it at a 90-degree angle, so I can actually go in this way and then out at a 90-degree going that way, you know, if that makes sense. And now Home Depot is actually carrying these push-to-fit fittings, which you can actually just plug that the CO2 poly line right there. You can actually just plug that directly into the reactor now, which is fantastic because I can just reduce that down from the 1.5 inch coming in from the side here, and then I'll just have my water coming in from the top. So let me catch up with some of the chats here. Steven Scoglin saying, don't forget to click through the Amazon banner on Darkstar Arts. It lets them know Corvus sent you and gives him more pennies to keep the show going. Yeah, the Amazon banner stuff is important to keep that stuff going. And I just wanted to mention, I know a lot of people out there only want to do it when they're making a big purchase, but honestly, the smaller purchases really add up to be really important. Because let's say that we only had like 30 things ordered that were all big purchases through the Amazon site, or 200. It's a big difference to Amazon. So click through that stuff. There will be links in the description of the video down below to grab some of the stuff that people are looking for in regards to this build. But I'll have to punch those in later because I can't really do them live. The bonding agent I'm using on this this PVC here, so that clear piece is actually clear PVC itself. So I'm actually just using medium body clear PVC cement to hold this all together. It's super simple to use, honestly. Just make sure that you coat it properly and press everything through. Although building this reactor itself isn't that, it's not going to have pressure behind it, so it's realistically not it doesn't need to be perfect, if that makes sense. Even though I'm probably taking a little too much time in the video here building it, but there's the push to fit fitting that they have now. They actually carry those at the Home Depot now, which is actually really, really easy. It's very helpful compared to the previous incarnations I've had to do. Let's see here. Let me catch up to the chat because people were asking questions and now I got to reread them. The price of movies don't bother me. It's the chance of being a victim of, oh yeah, whatever. KG, I need to hear or see a name like 100 times to get it right. Yeah. The Lone Aquarist was asking, did you get Adobe Creative Cloud yet? You could do the live stream via Adobe Character Animator. No, I haven't got the Creative Cloud yet. I'm just kind of hanging on with the fire away button because I have so many projects hanging on Vegas right now that I don't want to pay for Adobe yet until it's time to start integrating all those projects. But it is on my, hit send. It's on my hit send on the other computer. It's essentially just sitting there waiting to go ahead and fire that up, and then I can start converting over. But like I said, I have a bunch of projects on Sony Vegas right now, so I haven't switched over yet, but I will be at some point in time. Where is somebody else asked? The bonding agent is based on a trust fall. He did with Corey and Jamie. Jimmy. The trust fall bonding agent. I got it. I wish you Jimmy Brown. That actually is hilarious. And Mary Beth Mabe, I did get your message, and I cannot reply to you on Facebook right now, so I will reply to you after the live stream, though. Don't think that I'm ignoring you. I will respond. Let's see. I was watching a couple of shows on invasive species in the States. Was surprised some Australian fish and wildlife have become an issue to you guys in the States. Yes. Invasive species come from everywhere and they go everywhere, and it's almost always unexpected. People always think like, oh, it's gonna be fine, it's not a big deal. And invasive species, I would remind anybody to not release any kind of fish or shrimp or plants, especially well, fish either. I mean, realistically, don't release anything that's not from your area. Go ahead and get it and dispose of it properly. If you are going to throw it out, hopefully sell it to another fish keeper if you're going to throw it out. A delicious coffee. And somebody was asking about, and I missed it. I don't know where it went. Somebody was asking a really good question and I missed it. Let's see. Cable ties and duct tape solve any issues? Yeah, for sure. As much duct tape and cable ties as you can put together in any project is definitely the best way to go. Oh, Ashley is here. What's up, Ashley? Bentley Pasco, Corvus, do you offer sump building services for us slackers in the Seattle area? I'm always available for aquarium projects and the like if you need something built. The easiest way to contact me would be to go to darkstararts.com, and then my contact information is on there. You can get a hold of me via that. If it's something a worthwhile project, I can definitely come out and provide my services to y'all if somebody needs some help. If it's something that you just need a question answered, that is also a good way to go about getting a hold of me. And speak of the devil, where did my emails go? Over here? Haha. Vince Grippa sent in quite a nice email here to explain a couple of the things from the Fluval light fixture, which we're very much enjoying so far. I cannot give you guys a progress report in regards to the growing potential yet, because it's only been on there for a couple of days. But as one of the things that I was talking about on there was the essentially like with the air quote ballast that is on there. Is some of the stuff, a lot of the drivers to convert the voltage from an alternating current to a direct current, and from 12 volt to up to 24 volt is one of the big reasons why it is great to be using these type of LED fixtures, and one of the big reasons it's essentially waterproof and less dangerous to humans getting shocked if you were to drop it in the tank. So that is I just wanted to answer that real quick, because that's a perfect example of sending me an email in a proper fashion from Darkstar Arts. I definitely get those. Sometimes the YouTube stuff just gets lost in the mix. But if people need help, contact me there, and I can at least give you some advice. I can give you guys some at least some advice. If not, we can figure out. I can come out and help you out. Let's see. Well, Dr. Red Pill's got to go. See you later. And Mary Beth Mabe's computer shut down for some reason. All right. Well, as we all know, it's Monday, and that kind of stuff is just going to happen, right? So overall, I'm pretty happy with the build here. I did make it a little bit shorter than typical with the reactor. And the reason for that is that I only have a limited amount of that clear PVC left. So one of the big reasons that I made it short is I'll be making another one of these that will be going on to Victoria's 75. She has a planted 75, and I'm going to be putting that. I'm going to be putting that in, that's where I'll be building and using the rest of the PVC. So this one was a little bit shorter, but I'm I'm overall pretty satisfied with the build. Some of the parts that I wanted to talk about a little bit that does get confusing to some people, and actually Ashley's asking about that right now. Also, what's the purpose of having the bile balls submerged? I thought they were supposed to have contact with air. Well, in this reactor, this reactor isn't doing any filtering. All this reactor is doing is adding CO2 to the water column, which has a tendency for people to get confused because they think, oh, I need to have CO2 for my plants to grow. A lot of your plants will grow from how much CO2 is already in your water column, just invariably there. It just makes it easier for your plants to photosynthesize. Your plants will use nutrients that it will acquire from your substrate and the water column to combine with the CO2 and from the photosynthetic process, we'll use the carbon and all that stuff to combine and create more plant. Now, it will help your plants grow a little bit faster, but it is definitely not a necessity. It's not something that you have to have. But I definitely like to have the CO2 running when in the first month or two of in a aquarium, because it just helps my plants grow in a little bit quicker right off the bat, which is realistically what you know, it's realistically my goal. I want to jumpstart the aquarium a little bit. What's the name? I'm trying to think what the name is when you do a dry start. That's what I'm thinking of, dry start. When you do a dry start in an aquarium and let the plants grow in that way, I've never had that work out very well for me. So I've tried it a few times. I tried it well, 4 or 5 times realistically. Every single time I could never get the tank balanced after the fact, but I like to bring it up this way with everything submerged and doing a nice CO2 gassing to kind of keep things kind of growing a little bit as I'm breaking in the photosynthetic time, because I start out with such a short time for photosynthesis in order to process in that short period, because the last thing I want to do when I just set up an aquarium is grow a bunch of algae. So that's one of the big reasons that it is going in this way. Karen KZL is saying, sorry, but why is it in the sump? I thought bubbles needed to be in the tank itself. That's one of the reasons for running a reactor like this, is that the CO2 will actually be. Here's the best way to explain it in kind of layman's terms. It would be that the CO2 is suspended within the water column. It's essentially fully dissolved into the water column. So, like, you know, when I put my creamer in my coffee, you know how the creamer will just sink to the bottom and it's not really like mixed in yet? It's essentially mixing the CO2 into the water, so it's basically a part of the water. And you'll notice that it is in the third chamber of the sump on here. The sump on the 150 here only has 3 chambers on it. Some of mine have more. But the CO2 will be near the last chamber to return up to the tank. So that water that's going back up into the aquarium is what will have the CO2 in it. Then it will kind of mix around in the tank, right? So it'll be spinning around in there, then it'll go over the overflow, come back into the sump, which is where it'll get a lot of its oxygen, right? A lot of the oxygen from the air mixed with the water coming back down into the sump, and then that water will travel through the sump, hit that last chamber, and that water that's coming from the reactor will pump a little more CO2 back into the water while it heads back up to the top. So it'll just keep doing that while it's running. And so I will answer the question in the chat right here. Is my CO2 on a timer? Yes, my CO2 is on a timer, and it comes on. The CO2 starts up 1 hour before the lights come on. Okay, so if the lights were to come on at 6 o'clock, my CO2 starts at 5 o'clock. Then let's say that my lights turn off at 10 o'clock. the CO2 will turn off at 9 o'clock. So it'll turn off 1 hour before the lights turn out, and it will come on an hour before the lights come on. Does that make sense? I hope I explained that in a way that made sense instead of me just waving my arms around. But so we'll start up the CO2 before the lights come on, and then it'll turn off before the lights go off. Because overnight you have really no need for the CO2. In some of my applications in the past, some of you guys have been following for a long time know that I used to run, or on some of my tanks I would run CO2 24 hours a day. My CO2 I run is not fully automated. The fully automated systems are pretty expensive, and I definitely don't run a fully automated system with like a pH tester in there, because they're just really expensive. They just really are. When I know I can set my dial to where I want my CO2 to be and have it turn on and turn off with a timer. But in the past, like for instance with my one of my crystal shrimp tanks, I would leave it rocking and rolling all day and all night, just at a real low level to help balance out my CO2, because my CO2 would not my CO2, my pH, my pH would rise up a little bit here and there. So I would essentially just leave my CO2 on, and you know, one of the things with that is that once I left it on, it would keep my pH down the whole time, because I would rather have had it you know, go from 6.4 to 6.6 and then just kind of stay in that range, than to have it jump back up to, a full 7 or 7.2 or anything like that. That's just realistically me being kind of paranoid at the time. And realistically, it was just easier to be paranoid and run it like that, if that makes sense. Why an hour before the lights come on is that to saturate the water with CO2 so that when the lights come on, they absorb it right away. That is exactly the plan. When the CO2 comes on ahead of the lights, it gives a chance to have plenty of CO2 in the water so that when the lights do come on, the plants can start photosynthesizing right away and not have to be in that period of trying to find CO2. I mean, that's just kind of the easiest way for me to explain it, is that the plants are looking for some CO2 to combine with the stuff, with the nutrients that they are picking up out of the substrate or the water column in order to grow. And then they don't need CO2 over the nighttime, and they will release a lot of the oxygen to keep the oxygen level high at night. So that was one of the big reasons that in the past I have left it on 24 hours a day, but currently I'm not doing that anymore. It is set up on a timer. Let's see. Michael Hoffman's got to go. Family time. Oh, family time is the best time, so that's good. We like that. Ashley saying nothing wrong with a little paranoia. Almost. So basically like starting a car early in winter before you need to leave so you can get in and go. Yes, Jordan, that's a great way to put it. You do want your car to be warmed up before you go blasting around in the winter. Jim is blasting this out on a full screen. All right, so we looked through the video segment twice. Hopefully I explained enough, at least to satiate some people for today. And as we run through here, we'll see if there are any more questions to check on. Which I gotta keep moving around because people think their computer froze when I'm trying to read. It's Sean Crabe. I like when you're reading comments and it looks like the screen's frozen. So I gotta move around. I gotta bob and weave. Serpentine pattern. Wyatt Ward was asking, the CO2 is forced down. Yes. Yeah, so the CO2 is actually being released at the top of the tank, or at the top of the reactor. So the water's going in this way. The CO2 is getting pumped in right here because the CO2 wants to rise because it's a gas, right? So it wants to rise up. It wants to rise up into the air. So the water flow heading down, the CO2 wanting to go up, right? So then the water will keep going down, and then the CO2 will be kind of bouncing around in there, plus the bioballs will agitate all that, kind of bust it up and get it into the water column. And then it'll get fully, it'll be essentially get fully dissolved into the water column. So when the water heads back up into the aquarium, it'll have a nice saturation of CO2 into it. And then my two return pipes that come in, they're below water level, right? So they just, and then that water will get circulated right into the tank, and then the plants will be able to pick it up. Is CO2 expensive to buy or begin? It can be a realistic investment, and I will answer. Actually, I can answer all of these questions pretty quickly. Chris 1 is asking, did you use DIY CO2 also? Yes. And here, this is why I'm going to be answering the CO2 expensive to buy or to begin. This is all the same kind of question here. So initially, when I started getting into, let me see about this CO2 thing. Some people were talking about it, like I was talking about it with Tom Burr, and we were talking about it, and he was saying, yeah, there seems to be some pretty good benefit with the tanks that he was working on at the time. It's kind of a long time ago, showing my age here, but there seemed to be a lot of benefit at the time, and it was like, okay, well, how do I go about doing this? Okay. And then once I looked into the equipment, I went, oh, wow, the equipment's pretty expensive. Let me see if I can't figure out the DIY way of doing this. Okay. And then, I looked up a couple of recipes for making the CO2, and I said, hey, man, I've been a chef for a really long time. This is super easy. This recipe is just like when starting pizza dough, realistically. That's really basically what it is, or brewing beer or anything like that. It's all really simple process of getting the yeast to consume sugar, and then it farts out CO2. So really simple recipe, and I was like, okay, I know how to do this pretty well. I've done this a bunch of times. And so I was like, okay. So I put that together. And then the DIY yeast, no matter what I did to stabilize it, the best that I could get out of it was probably 5 days was the best. So realistically, if you start kind of adding up this 5 days, having to replace it and stuff like that, I was doing it multiple times a week. And this is a huge waste of time, realistically, when you get down to it, as far as I'm concerned, with doing these extra projects when I have all these other projects I got to do, and with work and all that kind of stuff. I had just too much stuff going on, and it was going to be and it just turned into such a time suck. And I was having to buy yeast and sugar and stuff all the time. So it's not like yeast and sugar are free. Like, I just go get them off the yeast tree or the sugar tree outside, right? So I was having to buy materials to do it. I was also had, sloppy, yeast bottles that people would like maybe run into and knock off of something or whatever, and then get yeasty carpet, which is disgusting. So it's not like the DIY was $0, and so it was like, okay, all this hassle might be worth it. It was still costing money. Now the funny thing is, if you guys notice that the tanks of CO2 that I use are the big 20 pounders. They're not the 50 pounders like welders use, but they're just the half size ones of those. And those only cost $18 to get exchanged for a full one, right? So it realistically, and it lasts probably, well, I've got mine running on a couple of tanks, right? I've got mine running on a couple of big tanks, and I think realistically, without having to mess with it or change it, it's probably 6 months. Probably 6 months before I have to swap them out for anything else. So In reality's sense, it is cheaper over the long run to get compressed CO2, but it will cost you money to get it set up. So a regulator, a tank, all that kind of stuff is fairly expensive. I always recommend people to find used on Craigslist or something like that. There are a bunch of like paintball conversions and that kind of stuff out there that people can use, and definitely get into a little bit cheaper than how much it's really going to cost to get the initial setup. So the initial setup is much more expensive, but over the long term, you're definitely going to save a ton of money, and not buying sugar and yeast all the time. For nanoscapers or those just starting out with CO2, the Tropica 60 disposable CO2 system is great. I'm currently running 2 and seeing improvements over no CO2. That actually is a great piece of advice for people running, you know, small nano aquariums and that kind of stuff. Is a great way to get into the CO2 and figure it out. Let me find a link. Let me find a link for you all. Here is let me see. I think this is it. Nope, that's not it. That's not it. Oh, you'd think I would have looked this up ahead of time. CO2 regulators mount up. There we go. Sorry, I had found that one. Let me find the one that I actually use. The one that I actually use is an Aquatech, and I'm not sure if these are available on oh, here it is. Nope, third party. Well, those aren't really like around anymore. All right, let's look at the second recommendation that I have here. Wait, where did it go? Oh, there it is. Okay. So, whoops. Give me that link. Give me that link thing. There we go. I'm gonna come back over here and drop this one in here. So here's the regulator, and then that's the regulator right there. And then where's the Fluval one? Oh, here it is. The Fluval one I found, the CO2 88 one. This one right here is the easiest one to get started. That'll be the easiest one to get started realistically, and I don't know why. Well, how cool is that? It won't let me post. Huh. All right. Well, I guess YouTube is not letting me post links. Oh, cool. How cool, YouTube. Thanks. All right. Well, either way, the Fluval CO2 88 one is the one that I found to be the easiest one, especially with their in conjunction with the with a drop checker will be the easiest thing to do. And a CO2 drop checker is actually pretty easy to get a hold. Pretty easy to get a hold of. And get started realistically would be the easiest thing for people, is to get a drop checker, and you'll be able to check it that way. And so once you have a drop checker and, you know, basically one of those little disposable units, that'll be the best way to kind of break into it and start to realistically get used to it, if that makes sense. That would be the easiest way for people to get started and get going on it. If that makes sense. So I don't know why YouTube won't let me post that up, if that makes sense. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know why it won't let me post the link up there, but you guys can pretty easily search that out and find the best deal out there for you all. That's for sure. All right. Let's I should wear face paint like a pro wrestler for at least one of my streams. Well, I'd do that. Lone Aquarist gots to run. I know that a lot of people got to run. That's for sure. It's 5 o'clock. Let's see. Sagrath says, is it normal to have gas trap inside a reactor, or is it going to be full of water and bubbling? You definitely can get some gas trapped in it if your flow going in there is too strong. It can definitely pile up in there a little bit and be a little kind of chaotic looking inside the reactor. That can be a bit of an issue realistically sometimes, but it's not going to really deter from too much of its actual effectiveness. So I wouldn't be worried about that too much. All right, guys. Well, we are at the hour mark. Hopefully, I answered everybody's questions. I'm not sure. I'm trying to look through them here real quick and make sure that we got everything in. And he's trying to post. I don't know. I wouldn't worry too much about it. I'll actually, I know where I can add it. I can add it right down in here. I'll add it into the comments down below here real quick, or the what do you call them, the annotations. I'll just add them into the description if you guys are looking for that. Oops. Oh, I just screwed that up. There. Need to hit the enter button and not that. But they will. All right. I figured it out. I'll put these in the down below. Okay. So I'll put these in the down below description for you all. And if you wanted to look those up, that'll be the Fluval and the drop checker. Those, realistically, it's about $100 to get started up with the disposable one. The disposable ones will be more expensive in the long run because you're going to have to keep buying those little cartridges that that refill the little refill cartridges. But it would probably be the easiest way for people to get into it, if and the cheapest way if you don't want to try and go the Craigslist route. Like maybe the people in your neighborhood are super creepy and you maybe don't want to mess with them. Tim Lewis is asking, is it still effective to run CO2 part-time? I travel and can't run CO2 full-time, saving for a solenoid regular so I can put it on a timer. Yeah, essentially it will be. The one thing that you'd want to really be checking on if you're only doing it part-time is to really make sure to check for your pH swings. If you're throwing your pH all out of whack, you can end up with a bigger problem. But realistically, it's not gonna be a detrimental to your plants and stuff. That pH swing will be detrimental to the critters that live in your aquarium, whether it's fish or shrimp or snails or any of that kind of stuff. So realistically, that's what I would that's the one thing that I would be watching out for, is to double check your pH and that it's not swinging all wildly out of control. So hopefully people out there enjoyed the program today, and hopefully everybody is having a fantastic Monday. If you do get a chance to swing over to the Patreon, there's a community there. A community tab where you guys can post stuff. You can support the show for the future programs and those kinds of stuff that are coming up. It is pretty regularly. This is pretty regularly just just a lot of money. I know that somebody had posted a while ago that hopefully the money from the Patreon is going towards the cameras and stuff. And there's one thing that I'd like to point out: almost all of my production stuff, like the $1,500 camera that I run, was all out of pocket. We've bought the encoder for here, and we've paid for basically the XSplit subscription and a couple other things. And dude, that is super awesome. I'm not trying to downplay or anything like that, but I've definitely spent a lot of money in order to keep this stuff going. But as we grow, that means the show can grow, and that's the thing that I'm really excited about. And I'd like to give a shout out to all of our current patronizers. And I apologize if I sounded weird there for a second. Realistically, I'm super stoked to how things are going and stuff. I don't want to sound like a dip, you know what I'm saying? So starting off at the top of the list, we've got Aquarium Co-op. Who's our biggest contributor out there. Thank you very much, Corey. Speaking of Corey, we'll be live streaming at 10 o'clock with 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time tomorrow, Tuesday the 10th, on Jimmy of Aquarium Co-op's channel. So tune in for that. Otherwise, I'll be back here at 4 p.m. Tomorrow, Tuesday. Followed very quickly by Steven Skoglund, Kieran Egan, The Fishy Mailman, Sashimi Whiskey, and Long Woo, and Eric Gone Mad. Oh, which one thing to point out is the Chicago Aquatic Experience, Aquarium Experience, Aquatic Experience, is coming up. I'll be traveling out there, shooting video, probably do some live streaming from there. Actually come out and actually meet some of y'all in person and whatnot. So that is coming up, and we realistically, that's going to be a lot of fun, but it's also going to be a big, what do you call it? Credit card weight on my shoulders. But the cool thing about that is that Iris and Iris's house and Eric Gone Mad are going to allow me to crash out there and probably steal their cookies in the night like Batman. And a big thank you to Iris for hosting and hosting at her house with Eric Gone Mad. I think I had confused that it was Eric's house at one point in time, and my humble apologies. I have yet to be there yet, so I haven't come to their house yet. So hopefully nobody's too upset, but a big thank you to Iris and also Eric. So as continuing with the patronizers here, at the $10, we got Joel Gillett, Tim Lewis, Kyle Paith, Pax, Vince Grippa, Denzel Gregory, Nick K Aquatics, Rob Hicks Aquariums, Matt Gilmet, Jack Betts, Cichlid Bro, Emden Hollander, Jennifer J Sarchicino, Kevin Keener with the strong beard game out there. Kevin Keener. Yeah. Pamela Early Wine at the $5. Oh, here we're starting out at $6.99 and $5. We got Pamela Early Wine, Bracken Ward, Placo Steve, Dennis Ballard, Dean Hanoi, Theodore Schultz, Roger Deadham, Lecter Records, Candy Overhauls, Addison Nishijima, Jim Meeker, Karen Halbert, Eve Deigel, Kevin Hayes, Gene Fensky, and Karen KZ Ellis. Down here at the $1 Club, we've got Gary Brown, Riverlife, Frank, Barbara Jackson, Ivan Van Natter, Wyatt Hickson, Derek Runyon, HC Aqua, Alexandru Radon, Nisi of the North, Dean Feldman, Teresa Cookie, Spencer Ballard, AMA Aquatics, Matthew Weger Hagerton, Priscilla MK, Jeff Jackson, Thomas Donchek, and Matthew. Lots of Matthews down in the $1 Club. Thank you very much to all the patronizers. Hopefully everybody out there has a fantastic Monday. Don't get crazy. Don't shoot off any fireworks. And we will... as Riverlife says, that's our brand new patronizer right there in the chat right there. Thank you very much for patronizing, and we're just going to keep the shows rolling here. That's how we're trying to fund it. We are awesomely at 57 Patreons at $609 a month, which is awesome. Which is awesome, but that is less than my bills. That's just reality, but it is super awesome, and I'm super stoked, and I hope everybody has a fantastic Monday.